after all she's done for us and all she's suffered on our behalf, she feels she's owed the presidency. And, you know, who could possibly disagree? Her life is meaningless if she doesn't get at least a shot. And one can only sympathize. Unless you think, as I do, that people should be distrusted who are running for therapeutic reasons. Because the presidency doesn't calm those demons, as her husband has already proved. But look, the reason why we have to think about it, and the reason why your question is a good one, is this. What else can the Democrats do? And if that's the case, what the hell shape are we in?
It still divides us as between those of us who think that a job must be found for Hillary Clinton, that the country would be somehow disgraced if she wasn't in an important position, and those of us who could do without her. And neither answer to that question is going to make any difference at all to the way the market performs.
The question of
if there was some foreign policy experience or brilliance that Hillary Clinton had ever shown, maybe we overlook the fact that she and her husband have never met a foreign political donor they don't like and haven't taken from.
Look, this is the woman who played the race card on Barack Obama. This is the woman who, if you were for change that you can believe in, or whichever change it was, you were voting against. This is the woman whose foreign policy experience consists of making a fool of herself and fabricating a story about Bosnia. This is the woman who, with her husband, have so many connections, fundraising connections overseas, Indonesia, China.
Just look at today's and yesterday's New York Times at the list of people with whom the former President Clinton has acquired a tremendous burden of debt. These are people who pay him all the time. From odd parts of the Middle East to strange donors all over the place. My colleague at Vanity Fair, Todd Purdom, anyone can Google this, just put in Purdom Clinton. See if you can bear to read the sort of friendships that a former president is having. It's undignified to think about it. From the Riyadi family in Indonesia to numerous Chinese donors who left this country rather than show up for the hearings on it. But I don't know of any such expertise on her part, except her pretense to have been under fire in Bosnia when she had not.
Actually, when there was pressure on the Clinton administration, with Les Aspin was Secretary of Defense, you remember, to do something about Sarajevo, to stop the killing, to prevent the ethnic cleansing, Hillary Clinton moved in hard on her husband and said, don't you do a thing about Bosnia, it'll spoil my wonderful health care plan.
At least on healthcare, she knows enough about the subject to have really changed American healthcare for the worse in her time. But foreign policy, she doesn't even know that much.
But I am very suspicious when John Kyle, a major supporter of the war in Iraq, a complete hawk, a neocon in many ways, complete hawk, supports her for this. Henry Kissinger's come out of the woodwork. He supports her for this. Why do these establishment as conservatives want her? What are they up to? Why do they want her? I don't know what they want.
Don't compare Kissinger to Kyle. I mean, Kissinger is a critic of the war and a so-called realist and someone who likes leaving.
Well, why do they both want her? They're both Republicans. Why do they want her?
Because she's a status quo type and they know they can, so to speak, trust her. She's a member of their club.
To remind people at this point of the lowest stage of the Clinton administration, when Eric Holder signed off at the Justice Department on the pardon of this fugitive, shall we call him financier, who'd also given a rather large loan that didn't seem to have been repaid to one of Hillary Clinton's brothers, who in turn, with the other brother, had gone for a walnut monopoly, or was it a hazelnut monopoly, in the Republic of Georgia, odd bits of the Caucasus involved in American foreign policy here, plus donations to the Clinton Library. It builds up and it goes on. Is this how the President-elect really wants to start?
The amazing brothers of hers who nearly got the, was it the nut monopoly in Kazakhstan or something farcical like that. Just look it up. It's a ludicrous embarrassment for the president and for the country.
You were asked and talked about the qualifications of your nominee for Secretary of State, and you belittled her travels around the world, equating it to having teas with foreign leaders, and your new White House counsel said that her resume was grossly exaggerated when it came to foreign policy.
Look, I mean, I think this is fun for the press to try to stir up whatever quotes were generated during the course of the campaign. No, I understand, and you're having fun. If you look at the statements that Hillary Clinton and I have made outside of the heat of a campaign, we share a view.
Can I just add, though, that I thought Obama's answer just there was incredibly cheap and evasive. I mean, he was right the first time to say, this woman doesn't in fact have any foreign policy experience, and he could have added, which also came up in the campaign, that the experience she has claimed, such as in Bosnia, was fake, was fabricated. And he could also have added that she, like his other nominee for the Attorney Generalship, main qualification in politics is being a friend of Mark Rich, which I don't think is change. As I say, if it hadn't involved her too, the campaign finance scandals, we're not talking about the ongoing stuff, Mr. Clinton's huge speaking fees in the Gulf and elsewhere, talking about previous convictions in the Clinton fundraising scandal. If it wasn't for the fact that she couldn't refuse her brothers everything, or sorry, anything, couldn't refuse them anything they wanted, they seem to have got, including some kind of deal for Mark Rich. All of this might be forgivable, or it might assume a different proportion, David, if it wasn't for the fact that this woman doesn't really have any foreign policy experience worth mentioning. And what is memorable about it is pretty bad.
Remember, Kissinger had to decline the honor that Bush wanted to give him of being chair of the 9/11 Commission because it would have involved mentioning the names of all the people who he had business dealings with around the world. And he wasn't willing to do that with Kissinger Associates. He didn't want to expose his clientele.
Okay, will we accept the deal?
The same thing, believe you me, is going to come up with the... She's been very, 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 very uncritically pro-Israel, though, at all times.
It's true that she's got a major name on the world stage. That's true by definition. It's only true that she's respected in the Pentagon if people go around saying so. I'd never heard that before, I must say. On some things, she's more hawkish than the president-elect, yes. But she tends to have acquired this reputation in what I'd call an opportunist manner. I mean, who really thinks that she felt that strongly about Iraq? She just didn't want to cast her vote the other way.
He's not worried about that. I genuinely think if he's got an eye toward politics, it's global politics, and he wants the strength of the Clinton name, the Clinton brand.
That's what the Secretary. That's what the Secretary of State. That's what the Secretary of State is for. And what you want as president is to know your Secretary of State spends all her time working to make sure that your policies stick. With this woman, that can't be said. She's always thinking first about herself, second about her husband.
What about her
I
husband,
trust
the former
Barack
president?
Obama
Will he play a role
more than yours.
Christopher, last question here.
That's never changed. That's never changed, and it's never going to. So he won't have.
That's your opinion, Christopher.
Nor will anyone. Well, guess what? Guess who's saying it? That's a very clever thing to say. Shall I ask?